Welcome to Wager Talk Friday Big Dance Action. Scott Spreitzer here with Dave Cokin, Marco D'Angelo, Mark Seidel out at the controls. 5 games we're going to break down on the slate. Then we'll get to best bets at the end of the show. Let's start first, guys, with Game 866. Kansas State taking on Creighton. Boy, I tell you, I don't know about the other books, but William Hill has been getting nothing but K-State money. First few days this week, that number's still been around Creighton, 1.5. Intriguing matchup. Dave, we'll start with you. Your thoughts? The Wildcats or the Blue Jays?
You know, Creighton is clearly not what they could have been. Second straight year they had a key injury, but last year's injury to Foster just that was it. Yep. Done. See ya. They couldn't recover from that.
Mo Watson.
Mo Watson, guard. I beg your pardon, the point guard. Foster's obviously very much a part of this team.
Better be on Friday if they would have a chance.
Boy, yeah, I'd say so. They lost a big guy and he provided a unique element because he was so good at getting the foul line, just to clog the lane. He did a lot of good things, and his replacement is more of a wing four, I guess you could say.
Kind of a beanpole, Epperson.
Yeah.
Young guy they're trying to get involved.
He can knock him down, but he's not the same type of player. But, I think they've kind of recovered from it to some extent. They're 6-7 since the injury, which isn't good, but they've played better basketball recently. And, their last game wasn't that big a deal. They'd already locked their way into the tournament, and, it just wasn't a terribly meaningful game to me. I'm still not buying Kansas State. I know they've had a lot of good outings this year. They've actually probably been better than I thought they would. I thought Bruce Weber might end up losing his job this season. Obviously, they're in the NCAA tournament, so he's going to be back again. And they're a capable team. Sure. But I got to tell you, matching them up man for man, I think Creighton's got the better talent. And I know this. If Kansas State doesn't have one of their better defensive games, they're going to have to lock this team down somehow. Because if they don't, if this gets it all up-tempo, I think Creighton's got him. Yep. So I'm looking Blue Jays in this game.
You brought up Bruce Weber, man. He did a great job at Southern Illinois, but then he takes the job in Champaign, not so hot. I've never been a big fan.
He did have one real good year in Illinois.
Yeah, but
they made a Final Four, right?
I think first year.
Yeah, but it wasn't his players.
It wasn't his players, and he's a good coach. He's not anything special. I mean, I thought he was going to be something big when he came out of Southern Illinois, out of Carbondale, because he did such a great job there in the Mo Valley. So many intriguing spots with this game. You've got Marcus Foster, one of Creighton's best players, along with Kyrie Thomas. But Marcus Foster started at Kansas State, his career there. And he was a mess on and off the court. He admits it to this day. He goes, I went to Omaha, I went to play for Creighton. And he goes, my whole life turned around, including my game on the floor. So there's a little bit of extra motivation out of Marcus Foster in this particular game. It's kind of funny. I'll just throw this out there, a little bit of color on this game. I grew up in Omaha, obviously, and we used to call Creighton the school on the hill and called them the Hilltoppers, a bunch of nicknames like that. And I used to go to all their home games. I was a huge Blue Jay fan. Couldn't stand Nebraska in basketball. I was all Creighton, and there was a big rivalry. Big Nebraska football fan, not in basketball. And so what happened, though, is Louisville, Kentucky, like Dave could attest to, you've got the snobs against, as they call it, the slobs. Now, I'm just saying from what they say, not what I say. You've got Louisville where they're, pinkies in the air, so to speak, and drinking wine and all that kind of stuff. And then you got the whiskey-drinking Kentucky gang, and I like whiskey, by the way. Well, that's what goes on in Creighton and eastern Nebraska. These schools are only like 40, 45 miles apart. Creighton is considered to be the hoity-toity group. It cost, an arm and a leg to go there, the whole shebang. Nebraska is more of the down-home working-class group. But in this particular game, even with Martin Krampel getting hurt a while back, his 12 points, 8 boards a game, his defensive stoppage ability in the paint being gone from this team, I think they got too much talent for K-State here. And I was a little bit, I'm not going to be shocked if K-State wins, but I was a little shocked that the numbers are so overwhelming on Kansas State at William Hill Sportsbooks as far as bettors are concerned.
I think that goes to the public perception of the Big 12. I think they look at the Big 12, and I'll agree. Overall, I thought the Big 12 was the best conference this year. But when I go back and look at the conference play, Kansas State was 4th. They finished 4th in the Big 12. But you look at what they did against the top 3 teams. Mm-hmm. They were 0-7 against the top 3 teams. I look at Creighton. They finished 3rd in their conference, but they did have a win against the top 2 teams. Sure. And, who were those top 2 teams in the conference? 2 number 1 seeds in Xavier and Villanova. Now, we could debate if Xavier deserved a number 1 seed or not.
Close
but
enough,
still,
though.
yeah, they beat, so I like the body of work of Creighton. I think they're the better team than Kansas State. I think the public that is betting Kansas State is betting the conference more than they are betting the team. And I'll make it unanimous. I'm going Creighton with you guys.
Texas and Nevada going to hook up here. It's game 880 on your schedule. Nevada about a point favorite, and then I saw it go to a pick. I've seen a couple of shops where Texas became a short favorite. I will say this much. I like both of these coaches, by the way. You've got Musselman going up against Shaka, and, I like Eric Musselman when his team loses a game. I don't think I want to go against him next time out. But in this particular matchup, Nevada comes out of the horrible Mountain West, and I know Nevada deserves to be here. But, boy, if Mo Bamba's 90% or more healthy, Marco, they haven't seen a guy like Mo Bamba. I think Ralph mentioned that on our videos we shot the other day at WagerTalk.com. I just think they're a little bit too strong for the Wolfpack.
Is he going to be healthy, though?
Well, they're saying 85, 90% at least. At least. It's a toe. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
I'm fine. I think I don't know. They're saying 90% at least. So if we go on what they're saying, he's going to be healthy.
I hear what you're saying.
He's not
with
listed
Texas.
as questionable or probable.
I look at this one here, and, Texas, they got here. They finished 8th in the Big 12.
Which is about on par with first in the Mountain West. That's why the lines pick them.
I can't disagree with that. But Nevada was head and shoulders above everybody, I thought, in the Mountain West. And I know the Mountain West
they lost
was
to UNLV, man.
They did lose to UNLV once. I don't know how that could possibly have happened, but they've got it back in the rematch. And this is a team that was solid from start to finish. They had out-of-conference wins against Rhode Island and Davidson. Again, not a power conference, but two teams that are played their way into the tournament. Texas, the offense at times is very good. It's been inconsistent at times. And again, that has to go a lot with the injuries, in and out of the lineup. I got a small lean to Nevada, but this is one I don't think is going to get to my card. I hear you if he's 100% healthy or 90%.
The reason I believe it is he's not listed as probable. He's not listed as questionable. He's just absolutely playing. Yeah. And he's a different player than Nevada's faced all season. Doesn't mean Nevada can't win. It's a pick-em game. It's a 50-50 game. I just happen to think they're a little bit outclassed athletically in this game.
I have a play in this game, and I've given away a couple that I'm going to be on posted at Wager Talk, so I think that's enough. I'm going to pass this one because I am selling this one. Buy it.
Fine. Game 886, Florida State and Missouri. I'm just going to say one thing, man. In a game that's, again, it's a round pick-em kind of game as far as the talent level is concerned, I am done.
Leonard Hamilton.
Back in Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
After you saw him have his best or most talented team he's probably had last year, and really, you lose by a point or two, you play a good game, that's one thing. They just never showed up for that big dance game last year. So I don't know that'll be on Mizzou, but I'm not going to be saying, I'm not going to be rooting for the Noles. You're not going to see the tomahawk going in my room on Friday.
My sentiments exactly. And, I think that we saw Porter light in his first game back. Yeah. And now he's got a game under his belt, and you're going to see a guy who, before the season started, many people thought, well, this is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I suppose he still could be. Mm-hmm. His ceiling is just, there is no ceiling on this guy. He's that good. And, I know Florida State's got the athletes to defend him, but their schemes often break down at crunch time. There's just no denying the history of Leonard Hamilton in big games. I'm sorry, he just doesn't win many of them. I'm favoring Missouri, if for no other reason than that. But I like this team anyway, and I think Martin's got them well positioned to maybe pull a couple of surprises in this tournament. We'll see. I
think Missouri's depth is an issue that you got to handicap into it. That's
but
probably
it got a little bit better with
Porter. And again, like you said, they eased him back, and now he's ready to go. But the fact that the depth is still a little bit questionable for me is what has kept Mizzou off my card thus far. They might make my card. Florida State absolutely will not.
This is one of those ones where you got to pick the lesser of two evils. It's an 8-9 seed matchup, so it should be a coin toss, and it is. Neither team played well down the stretch. You look at Missouri; they finished the season 2-4. What concerns me more is the losses that they had were ugly. They lost to LSU. They lost to Ole Miss. and they lost to Georgia. Losing to LSU and Ole Miss, especially Ole Miss, that's ugly down the stretch. Now, Florida State, they were 4-6 down the stretch straight up, but we don't really care about straight ups here in Vegas. We care about against the spread, and they were a dismal 1-8-1 against the spread down the stretch. But
that's
I look at, not good. But overall, I think Florida State, you look at those 5 of their 6 losses down the stretch came to Virginia, NC State, and Clemson. All 3 of those teams are in the tournament. Of course, Virginia being the number 1 overall seed. And the other 2 losses were Louisville and Notre Dame, 2 teams that a lot of people thought should have been in the tournament. Notre Dame was the technically last team out. If you forced me to take this game, I lean to Florida State, but I'm like you. I don't like the coach. I don't like that 1-8-1 against the spread run. So it's a game I probably will not be involved, but small lean to Florida State.
The last 2 games I thought would be fun to talk about. The first one is Murray State taking on West Virginia. West Virginia, they came down. They were about a 10.5, 11-point favorite, got down to as low as 9.5. If I'm a coach, I didn't want to draw the winner of the Murray State-Belmont game, Marco. I really didn't. I think Murray State, obviously when you look at how a team fares against West Virginia, you got to start by seeing, okay, do they protect possessions? And Murray State does. They have a 1.25 assist-to-turnover ratio. They average just 11 turnovers per game, and it's about the same away from home. So I kind of agree with this Murray State movement, dropping that number down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to go a different direction in this one, and I'm going to look at a first-half wager. And I hear what you're saying about Murray State. And, Dave, I know you'll remember when we talked about this game with West Virginia doing a radio show on a Friday earlier in the season when they played Kentucky. We talked about taking West Virginia first half, and we said because until you see this in Kentucky with all the freshmen and that they would have some problems with the press that they had, and until they adjust, if you figure it out, you're going to get easy buckets on the other end of the floor if you crack the press. But a lot of times it takes you a good while to figure it out. I think Murray State's going to come out and have some problems. I know they don't turn the basketball over, but until you actually see it in game speed, you can't emulate it in practice. I'm sorry. And I think they're going to come out slow here. And I think West Virginia is going to come out with chip on their shoulder after getting beat for the 3rd time against Kansas, and they actually got beat pretty bad in the 3rd meeting. The first 2, they actually should have won the first 2.
The 3rd game, they got the same thing. I think it was, 23-5 at the end of the game?
Right. Yeah. It was close up until the final few minutes.
They're ahead.
Yeah.
They cannot finish a game.
No, especially against Kansas for whatever. But I'm going to go first half with West Virginia. I think they get the job done in the first half, and maybe Murray State figures it out and can hang around. And as we've seen West Virginia blow the leads, and I think it's because teams figure it out.
And I think it's in their heads now. I think that West Virginia's gotten to the point now, and this is why they won't be around long in this tournament. They'll win this game. They might win the next game. But when they get up against a real good opponent, they're going to fall apart again because that's what they do. And I know this, I catch hell every time I say this, but I've said it. I've been saying it for years, and I guess I continue to say it, and I think I'm right. Huggins is one of the most overrated coaches in the history of college basketball. Okay, his teams are actually one-dimensional. They all do the same thing, and they can't do anything else. So once you beat them at the one thing they do well, they're toast. And what's his history in the tournament? It isn't real good. Okay, he's got a lousy history in the NCAA tournament.
The Marty Schottenheimer of college basketball.
Yeah.
And look him up if you don't know who he is if you're under 40.
Yeah, really, that's a good comparison. Doesn't win the games that matter. I think he'll get through Murray State. Racers will probably give him a game. I'm not going to play the game, but I am waiting for my spot to make a big play. I'm talking a 5% play against West Virginia. There's going to be one in this tournament.
This next one's kind of fun, too. Game 892, New Mexico State taking on Clemson, and the Tigers about a 5-point favorite. Total was around 133 or so. Right out of the bat, right out of the blocks, I'm watching the what do you call it, the March Madness show on CBS or whatever, and of course Charles Barkley tells everybody I like New Mexico State. So everybody who's watching who doesn't really follow college basketball closely starts to say that they like New Mexico State. That is a little bit scary. But what New Mexico State does is play a similar type of game as Virginia.
Yep.
And not that they're as good as Virginia, but it's a similar style. So I went in and I jumped, and we knew Clemson. I went against Clemson when they played Virginia in one of those games. But I jumped into it, and I wanted to see, okay, what were Clemson's numbers against Virginia? I knew they weren't good, obviously, but against a similar type team, Clemson scored a grand total of 94 points in 2 games. They shot 33%, right about 33%. They took 44 three-pointers against Virginia. They made 8, and they suffered 32 turnovers. Now, again, I'm not trying to say New Mexico State is on par with Virginia, but it's that same style of play that bothers Clemson.
Well, and here's, I had just kind of charted them all year long. I hadn't really seen much New Mexico State basketball until they arrived in Las Vegas, and the games at the Orleans were on TV. I didn't go to the Orleans, but the games were all on TV in the WAC tournament. So I watched them, and it's like, these guys are good. Okay, I mean, they're not some fluky team that you never heard of out of a bad conference, which the WAC is. They can play, and the WAC, they got 3 teams in that conference that are not bad, because Utah Valley is not a bad basketball team, and Grand Marley's team, Grand Canyon, is not a bad basketball team. New Mexico State's the best of the teams in that conference. I got to tell you, Clemson better not take this team lightly. If their coach is smart, he'll grab a hold of this point spread that shows his team's only a small favorite and say, hey, see, Las Vegas thinks we're just a little bit better than these guys. Mm-hmm. Barely better than these guys, so you better not treat them like they're a who. Yeah. And we've seen teams do it in the opening round. This could be one of those spots where the unknown New Mexico State, out of a completely unpublicized conference, turns out to be way better than anybody thought and pulls a first-round upset. I think it could happen here.
You when you say that, when you talk about you got to stay away from who are we playing, who is this, and not really being serious, I call it the Ed O'Bannon factor. You know where I'm going there, because when UCLA played Tulsa, he was like, who's Tulsa? Yep. Who's this? Well, you got beat by Tulsa in the opening game of the Big Dance several years ago. But Marco, your thoughts on this one? Because again, Clemson has shown that if you muck it up against them, you got a shot to beat them.
In New Mexico State, as you said, they are a great defensive team. The last 19 opponents, they held 13 of 19 to 38% or less shooting. You're going to win a ton of basketball games, and people will look and say the WAC and turn their nose up. I look at this Clemson team, and down the stretch, they weren't the same team. Entering February, this was a team that was 8-3 in conference play, looked like they could contend for, maybe second or third place, in the conference, looked legitimate, and then they just completely fell apart. You look at New Mexico State out of conference at the beginning of the season. On back-to-back nights in a holiday tournament, they beat a Davidson team and they beat Miami, both tournament teams, not the upper echelon, but tournament teams. I think they got a big shot here. I just don't like the way Clemson played at the end of the season. I'll give them the shot. And again, when you look at a 5 versus a 12 seed and I see a number like that, we talked about the Kentucky-Davidson matchup. This looks like that again. Now, Clemson's not the same marquee name as Kentucky is, but on the flip side, New Mexico State's much less of a marquee name than Davidson is.
And New Mexico State will get their blood flowing because it is an ACC basketball team they're going to face, so they'll be ready to go. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, Best Bets, we'll also give our Final Four. Stick around.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Wager Talk Friday Big Dance version. Don't forget, if you missed Thursday's Big Dance breakdown, you can still listen to that right here at WagerTalk.com. Let's get to Best Bets in a moment. First, Final Four. Dave Cokin, your Final Four.
Duke, North Carolina, Villanova, and I'll take the team on a mission, Arizona.
I'm there with you, man. Dave looked like Dave had been on a mission since Sean Miller said, I didn't do this. On that press conference, we did a radio show like an hour after that press conference that particular day. If you're going to defend yourself because you're innocent, that's the way you do it, like Sean Miller.
By the way, I was going to just say, it doesn't hurt the number 1 seed just lost their 6th man.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about, I was doing a show earlier today in Arizona, and we were talking about, they just lost their 6th man. The one problem, I'm going to just give my Final Four since we're discussing here real quick. Arizona, I've got them also. I've got them facing North Carolina, that side of the bracket. And then I've got Villanova taking on Michigan State. And I'm like right there between Duke and Michigan State. Rebounding became the deciding factor for me. So I've got Arizona beating Nova in the championship game. But, this kind of, if that six man's out, you've kind of got a situation that maybe lessens the fact that there's a chance, if Kentucky escapes their opening round game, that Arizona's going to have to play Kentucky followed by Virginia back-to-back. That's a stumbling block that they're going to have to get over. That could be a little tough on them. But if they get past those two teams, or if Kentucky doesn't win an opening round, then all of a sudden you've got Arizona a little bit easier to get past those two teams. I'll say one thing I want to see before you do your best bet. I am dying for Creighton to get out of the first round against K-State, to face Virginia. I can't wait to see team who wants to be first team gets to 90 wins against first team who gets to 55 wins. What a contrast that's going to be on Sunday. Dave, your best bet.
I'll take the last game we talked about, New Mexico State. I don't think it's going to be on my card. Actually, it's more of an opinion than anything else. But I do think the Aggies have a shot here, or a shot as opposed to a shot. What a shot is. I'll take New Mexico State plus the points.
Sounds good. New Mexico State from Dave. Marco, your best bet.
You want my Final Four?
Yeah.
No, we don't care about your Final Four, buddy.
I forgot you were here.
I'm just going to talk to Mark in the corner again. I've got Gonzaga, Arizona, Michigan State, Villanova. I think it's going to be Arizona.
We all picked Arizona?
Yeah. We all did. They're on a mission.
They're going to lose their first game.
I tell you.
The first ever 116. No, they're not a one, are they?
How many times is Arizona, going all the way back to Lute Olson days, is good? We always expected them to make a deep run, and then they never did.
Sure.
And then the year that they got all of this turmoil that happens, I just think this is the year they get there. Can they pull it off? I don't know, but they are definitely playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I like the way Michigan.
What do you think
State
about Arizona getting, being a 4 seed as the Pac-12 champion? Doesn't that feel a little bit undervalued in itself?
Well, the number 2 team in the Pac-12 didn't even get in,
and then almost got beat by NC Asheville in the NIT.
Exactly. Yeah,
that was a case of I think
I know
of them,
it was, but it's still NC Asheville.
And there were like 8 people in the crowd.
Their coach didn't help them in preparation for the way he won.
I'm very happy with the result. I took Asheville plus the points, and I know one of the USC kids isn't playing because he's decided, it's like a minor bowl thing.
Yeah.
I'm going pro. I'm not going to play in the NIT.
Sure.
It's NC Asheville. They're barely a top 200 team.
Yeah.
You can't have to go to double overtime with that team. That conference is not very good.
I was rooting so hard for Asheville to win that game outright so I could play them against them in their next contest. Marco, again, your best bet was what?
I'm going to go with Texas A&M at Providence. I'm going to take, or not at, but versus Providence. I'm going to take Texas A&M. And here's one of those things. And I go back to the old days of the Big East. And I that to me was the best tournament to watch.
It was the best. I was there year after year.
Those teams just beat up on each other in there. And so often you saw the team, there was always a team that made that run to the championship game. To me, they were wore out after the Big East tournament. And I'm looking at Providence in the way that they battled through and then got to the championship game against Villanova, and they had hard games in their, to get there. Both of those games were tough games right down to the wire, and then you go and play overtime to a number 1 seed Villanova and then to lose it. I just don't know what they got in the tank, and I think Texas A&M is going to come out. I think they're going to have the energy early, get the lead, and this is a Texas A&M team that, again, we've seen it with so many of these Big 12 teams. When they're good, they look really good, but too often they didn't. But I think because of the situation with Providence, I'm going to go with them. I like Texas A&M. I'm going to lay the points.
I'm going to go with the Creighton Blue Jays over Kansas State, and I do like this play. We mentioned why earlier, but what I didn't throw out there is that, listen, I didn't like the way that K-State finished up the season the way they did. They lost 3 of 4. Oklahoma won 2 of their final 10 games. One of those wins came against Kansas State. They were, them and like one other team that couldn't figure out how to defend Trae Young. They lost that game, by the way, 86-77 to the Sooners when the Sooners were not playing good basketball, and Trae Young cleaned up, going for 28. I think Marcus Foster, the former Wildcat, is going to clean up and lead Creighton to this victory. I don't have any dreams that Creighton's going to advance after this. I think they win this game, And even though Virginia won't have their sixth man, they probably lose to Virginia in the next game. But I like them here. I think they're going to win this game. 1 point, I think, is very fair if you like them. Not going to be shocked if something happens and they don't win this basketball game, without the big man in the middle to play on the defensive end and to score 12 and to grab 8 boards. But the bottom line is I think they're just a little bit better than K-State. And I do give probably 1.5 points. I know that's a lot in the coaching matchup. Greg McDermott over Bruce Weber. Point and a half better, I think, as far as that's concerned. So my best bet will be Creighton. Looks like we're all on Arizona. Sorry, Ayton. Sorry, Sean Miller. We hope we didn't do it to you, but we all think you're going to get to that championship game. Don't forget, all the guys have their picks posted up Thursday night, Friday at WagerTalk.com for Friday's games throughout the weekend. And also, don't forget about the NBA. I continue to handicap the NBA, as do all the guys, and we'll have those plays up also all weekend long. Your place to go, WagerTalk.com. Free videos, free plays, premium plays, the whole shebang. And you know the drill. Put the weekend in your win column. We'll talk to you next week.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.